Devil's Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address, episode 18, titled Little Bit of Everything, because we're going to talk a little bit of everything. I am your host, Sam Wu, here with the editor-in-chief of the Pucks and Pitchforks blog, Nick Villano, here on the Let's Go Devils podcast channel on the Primetime Radio Network, powered by Nova Product Design. Nick, we're at episode 18 in the dog days of summer, still talking about New Jersey Devils hockey, which actually there's a lot of things to talk about. It's always making the news, the NHL news every week when there is no news. And we also have a special guest coming on, and it's I followed his work for a very long time. Never talked to the guy, never met him. Dan Rice will be on the Hockey Writers. Will be on the podcast. Nick, I guess we're going to be talking about a little bit of Gusev and Taylor Hall, right?
Yeah, I mean, we had to talk a lot of Gusev with Dan, because Dan's like one of the guys he legit, I believe. I'm going to ask him for confirmation of this, but I'm pretty sure he's the guy who broke the Gusev story. There was rumblings that day, but then Dan Rice came out of left field and just like, boom, confirmed that. So hey, maybe we got the start of the new Bob McKenzie on our hands.
Yeah, well, we get in early, and then Dan will remember us when he's world famous and every tweet counts. But also, I do like Dan's work with the women's hockey league, the NWHL. I think I got that right. With the Metropolitan Riveters. Now, I've seen him work, in the press box. The people behind us. I've seen him walk around. I've never introduced myself, but he is definitely a pretty good writer, and I'm looking forward to that.
It's going to be a great. Yeah, it's going to be a really good interview.
Yeah,
I was trying to fill in the blanks for you. I was trying to fill in those blanks for you.
Yeah, you know what? We should also tell the audience as well. We were having some technical issues the last 3 weeks. Since our last podcast, wire by wire, I've been trying to figure out what our problems are, and I think we're almost there. It also involved going to my neighbor's junction box and making a couple repairs, even though I'm not really supposed to touch that. But I noticed something, and it seems to be working right now. So that's how hard we work behind the scenes. But yeah, so everybody's filing in right now. I can see on the Facebook Live. We're also on Twitter, Periscope, YouTube Live. You can find us on Facebook /Facebook.com/ Let's Go Devils podcast. You can find us on Twitter and Periscope at Let's Go Devils pod. Also YouTube Live. People have been very critical of me on YouTube Live. Have you seen some of the comments, Nick? This is crazy.
You should not. There's two things you should never look at. You should never look at YouTube comments, and you should never look at the comments on articles, because I remember back in the day, some of those ESPN writers just got roasted. So, Sam, that is where the depths of humanity lie, and they just tear into us. And you know what? Sometimes I'll take the heat. I deserve the heat. Sometimes I say some things that are controversial. So that's what all those people who say terrible things say, right? It's controversial. So maybe I say some things that are controversial, but I don't think that they should disparage you, Sam. You're just a nice gentleman who might get electrocuted trying to fix this podcast for us.
Yeah, I know, but sacrificing me, according to these people, Sam Wu, who needs him? He's expendable. But put in Beer Baron, put in Short Scott, but not Sam Wu. But yeah, no, I actually appreciate the comments because sometimes you get some good nuggets out there, and we encourage people to comment on our podcasts, on our social media platforms, and also even on the Pucks and Pitchforks Twitter account at Pitchfork Puck. Sorry, I'm still trying to still trying to practice that because it's kind of tongue twister at times. But
Oh yeah, we love it.
yeah,
We love the twist tongues, Sam.
yeah, and also I'm gonna ask the audience to help me out because there's a voting going on, and between Red Mill and this other place in Passaic County on one of these you know New Jersey news sites, and there's a pretty significant. I put this out on my Facebook page to vote for Red Mill, and the reason why is because that was the spot where I actually started thinking about the Let's Go Devils podcast. That's where it was all born. It was just one night eating some frozen yogurt or something like that, and they're in the finals right now in this contest. I don't know too much about the contest, but I'll post a link up on Facebook Live a little bit later. Just help us out. Put Red Mill over the top because that's exactly where the Let's Go Devils podcast really began. And that's where I started calling Beer Baron and Shorts Guy to see if they would do a podcast. And they hadn't talked to each other in years. But it turned out to be very well for us. But anyway, enough about that. So should we get Dan on? Should we get right to it?
Yeah, let's get Dan on right now. Let's not waste any time. We've wasted enough of these fine people's time, Sam. Let's get the big guns in right away. We're not the kind of podcast that's going to make you wait for the big guns, wait to the end. But why don't you go get Dan, and then I'll explain the game that we're going to play at the end tonight. The new tradition,
Okay.
Let's Go Devils State of the Fan Address, we're going to play some games at the end.
Okay. Actually, hold on one sec. I'm having technical difficulties. I've actually lost connection with the network, but I think we're still on. Facebook Live. Let us know. Are we still on? Because we're still on, but I have no control over our board. This stinks. I don't know what to do. I can't even get Dan on if I wanted to. So why don't we use some of our stall tactics, Nick? I thought we already used it up. Well, I think we're going to have to get creative.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about Gusev, like we said. We're going to talk about Hughes' impact. We're going to talk about the Hall situation. But there's a lot going on here this week. You know, the Devils have been saying, or I'm sorry, NHL Network has been saying that the Devils have had the best offseason of any NHL team, every single one. So I think that's kind of nuts that the Devils, I mean, we knew that the Devils were kind of in the, in the NHL landscape and we're making a lot more noise than they have been in past off seasons, but this off season has been crazy. And to say that the Devils have had the best off season, when the New York Rangers right over the Hudson River, and I think that the Devils have had a better off season than the Rangers, but the Rangers themselves traded for Jacob Trouba and signed Artemi Panarin, and still the Devils are getting them more love than they are. And the Rangers also got Capo Caco. So it's not like, the Devils got Hughes, they got Gusev, they got Wayne Simmons, they got PK Subban. So it's close when you look at it as a whole. But, the fact that the Devils are getting all the love, Sam, I love this. I love the love.
Well, I love hearing the Devils on the news. More positive than negative, obviously. It feels good right now to be a Devils fan. The last time I felt good about being in the news all the time, the Devils, after the Devils won the 2003 Stanley Cup, and listening to WFAN the next day, which was June 10th, 2003, it was wall-to-wall coverage of the Devils winning the Cup. And the 3 cups in 9 years. And I remember Joe Beningo, 6CC Sports, The Devils, I don't get it. They got no fans. I mean, you can just get Stanley Cup tickets at the Meadowlands and just walk up and go to Game 7, which was obviously not true. But you know, and Mike and the Mad Dog back then. I remember Mike's like, "Hey, dog." Hey, Mikey, I think those Devils are pretty good. I don't know what they're doing, but you got to give Lou Lamoriello credit. I don't know anything about hockey, but you got to give him credit. And it was just wall-to-wall coverage of New Jersey Devils winning, and even Ranger fans calling in, "Hey, I got to admit it, that's pretty cool. It's almost a dynasty at this point." So that was the last time. Sorry, I'm going back through memory lane. That was the last time I remember. The Devils actually getting some really positive coverage. And right now, it's starting to have that feeling since Jack Hughes was drafted.
I mean, to be fair, I think that most of the coverage was pretty positive in the 2012 season. That fourth line of Bernier, Giunta, and Ryan Carter was one of the most fun things, and a lot of people were really getting behind that. I remember there's a bunch of NHL.com articles about that fourth line. I don't know what the radio coverage was because where was I in 2012? I don't know. I've moved around a lot, Sam. I can't keep track of where I've lived. But I remember I think I was splitting time between Philly and Jersey. So I spent some of my time in Jersey, but I was in a part of Jersey that only got Philly radio. So, I was stuck listening to, I think it's 97.5. I don't remember what it was called. Brian Baldinger and Tony Bruno and all them. They were not talking Devils. They would only talk about hockey if the Flyers were in something. They'd find an Eagles thing to talk about. But anyway, I do remember that 2012 run getting some play. Everybody was talking about the Flyers when the Flyers beat the Penguins. Then we just kind of wiped the floor with the Flyers. And then everybody was talking about, the Rangers. What can the Rangers do? Can the Rangers do something? And the Devils kind of, they ended up winning that one in 6. And people were talking a lot. I will say people were talking a lot more about the Los Angeles Kings, but the Los Angeles Kings are doing something incredible. They came in as an 8 seed. I believe, didn't they sweep Roberto Luongo and the Canucks first round?
Yeah. I don't really remember, actually. It sounds about right.
I think they lost one game to the Arizona Coyotes in the Western Conference Finals, and that was the only game they lost going into the Stanley Cup. So I still hold on to that little piece of hope that at least we were the only team to beat them in 2 games, and they needed overtime to beat us in 2 others. So, I mean, looking back at it, obviously that Steve Bernier hit, leaves the bad taste in the Devils fans' mouth, but that was still a really fun series.
Yeah, I think had that ref called the icing when he should have, none of this would have happened. So, but yeah. We're still just I saw your text, Nick. We're still having technical difficulties. Basically, I don't have access to the board right now, so I can't patch anybody in like Dan. So I'm working on it right now. But hey, this is show business. We're live.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine doing live radio or live TV, and you don't have access to the board?
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't work. If we don't have access to the board, then we can't go to the next thing. We'd just be talking about the same story for the next half hour. And I guess you could do that in sports talk radio, but in my business and Sam and your businesses, I don't think that would work out so well.
Do you know what's really bad about this? That I can't.
What's really bad?
I can't turn off the live stream. I can't turn off anything, actually. So I hope your BSing skills are as good as mine tonight, because we're just trying to drag this on till this thing works. But yeah, I guess oh wow. Yeah. I lost it all. I think there's something wrong with the cloud or something like that. But anyway, enough about my technical difficulties. We'll definitely figure it out. So
do you want to go call Dan real quick, and then I'll vamp while you try to get your stuff going. I could talk to the fans for a little while.
Yeah, you can talk to the fans, but the problem is I can talk to Dan all I want, but I can't patch him into the program. So we're gonna have to improvise here, and I can't change cameras. I can't do much at all. But anyway, keep on talking. I'll talk with you. I'll keep on working. I'll pretend like I'm listening, and maybe I'll chime in.
Fair enough. I mean, what we were going to talk with Dan about mostly, we're definitely going to talk about the Gusev stuff. Like I said, he's been one of the guys who broke that story, and I want to confirm with him that he was the guy that broke the story. But we also want to talk about, one of the main things that happened this week. There wasn't a lot happening this week, and this is why the NHL Network always puts out these major lists. Top 20 centers, top 20 wingers, top the teams they love going into all these lists because they want to get people talking. And you know what, Sam, it works every single time. We fall hook, line, and sinker for it. We get mad about it, we get happy about it, we call it ridiculous. And you know what, Sam, I'm going to do that today. I'm going to call this ridiculous because how are you going to put Taylor Hall as the 15th best winger on the team, or I'm sorry, in the NHL, the 15th? They had, hold on, I gotta pull up the whole list. But I mean, Taylor Hall was ranked 3rd last year. I understand he had an injury-riddled season, but to make him fall 12 spots when you're looking into next year, and you got some guys, and there's a lot of good, there's a lot of good wings in the NHL right now. Don't get me wrong, but this guy's one year off from being a Hart Trophy winner. So looking at the list, you see Patrick Kane and Nikita Kucherov at the top. That's fine, and then you got Alex Ovechkin at 3. If you want to keep him at 3, I'm fine with that. Then you got Brad Marchand. That's what the NHL Network just loves this guy. They love Brad Marchand. I don't see it. Whatever. And then you got Mitch Marner. Mitch Marner, he had a really good season, but I don't know if he's the guy driving that line, Sam. I think he's the guy that's he's either playing with Austin Matthews or John Tavares. Is he the 5th best winger in the league, or is he in the 5th best situation in the league? And then you got Liam Draisaitl.
I'm going to take a timeout here. Sorry to interrupt you. It's all about the money. It's all about the Benjamins. They just want some clickbait. I mean, I like to think like the people that are putting this stuff together are not really thinking about that, but it's just like I saw, just an unrelated thing. I actually posted this on my personal Facebook page that 101.5, I think, said that Eli Manning to the Eagles next year and how this is going to happen. And I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. Are you that desperate? 101.5. Are you that desperate that you got to put that out there? Is this slow news day?
Well, let me ask you this. How did they get there? Was it at least a way, because I've said some crazy things, but I'll tell you how I got there. And I tell you how my, I'll tell you how my thought process worked there. And I'll give you that I think it's a long shot if I think it's a long shot. But, sometimes you have to throw it out there and be like, maybe this is true. Did he at least do that, or she?
Which article are you talking about? Are you talking about the Eli Manning thing, or?
Yeah, I'm talking about the Eli Manning thing.
You know what? To tell you the truth, I can't lie, because I knew it was clickbait. I didn't even read it because it was so because I'm so used to 101.5 and then some of their crap that they put out on their social media pages. But yeah, but I didn't actually read it. But you know what? Enough of me. I'm gonna get
bad.
I kind of fixed the problem. So Enough stall tactics. I'll go get Dan. We need a real.
Let's
we
go
need
get
a
Dan.
real professional. We need a real professional because some of these guys can't take woo right now in the YouTube live. Anyway, let me get Dan.
I'm not gonna lie, Sam. That was a lot of woo. But at least you didn't turn into Sam Lou tonight. So that's my old school Sam. That's what I call him when he kind of goes off the board and he talks about beef and wanting big guys and old school hockey talk. But so folks, I see Jason Morgan. Jason Morgan's angry. Marner is overrated. Yeah, I mean, I do think that Marner is overrated, but you can't tell me that just because Taylor Hall had a knee injury and that he was, he got hurt because he was trying to lift the entire Devils team back for 2 straight seasons. I mean, that's absolute. It's just, I mean, I agree with you, Chris Tynan, saying that that's idiocy. I do. I mean, I think that I don't want to disparage, a journalist, and they have a lot of people working hard on those lists, but. You got to just look at what Taylor Hall was doing before he got hurt. He was averaging more than a point per game. He was on pace to score 1 point less than he did in the season before. This is a guy that scored 26 points in 20, or he scored points in 26 straight games. This is a guy who could take over an entire game by himself. There's not many wingers in this league that can do that. That's a center type move. But Taylor Hall could take the puck, go end to end, either distribute or score on his own. There's just not a lot of guys that can do that. And honest to goodness, Taylor Hall just, there was a couple trust issues with Taylor Hall last year. I will admit that. There was a couple times where I thought he needed to trust Nico a little bit more. He needed to trust Palmieri a little bit more. And he was trying to do a lot by himself, but he was getting it done. He's a great teammate. He's a player that everybody wants to play with. He's the reason why Nico is just getting better and better every year. And, Nico showed that he could do it on his own last year too when Hall got hurt. But when the pressure's on, Nico has that Taylor Hall security blanket to let him know that he can do something good. And if it doesn't work out, Hall is going to have his back and going to make that up. And I'm sorry, that's just not the 15th best winger in the league. There's not a lot of wingers who can actually do something like that. So, I go more through this list. Johnny Gaudreau, I like Johnny Gaudreau. He had 99 points last season for the number 1 seeded Flames. That's fine. Leon Draisaitl, I don't get why Leon Draisaitl is on this list. I know he plays wing because they have nobody else to play with Connor McDavid, but Draisaitl needs to be a center. So that's a weird one on the list. Artemi Panarin, Hall is better. Just straight up. Hall is a better player than Artemi Panarin. Even taking injuries into account, I think Hall is a better player than Artemi Panarin. That's just what I think. Then you got Mikko Rantanen, David Pastrnak. Those are 2 really, really good young players. And I think Pastrnak could be one of the very best in the league, which is unfortunate because the Boston Bruins got themselves a steal in that year that they picked him in the draft. Blake Wheeler, I find him overrated a little bit, personally. I know he's a great captain. He's a really good player. He had a 91-point season, 71 assists. But they put him in pure scores, and good for him. That's great. But I think some of those points are inflated. That's just me personally. I think he's a great player. I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but he's not better than Taylor Hall. Then to round out the people ahead of Taylor Hall, we got Claude Giroux, Mark Stone, and then Vladimir Tarasenko. Tarasenko also criminally underrated on this list. Hi, Sam.
Hey, Nick. I finally got things working.
Oh, finally, right. Let's go, Sam.
Yeah, climbing up trees, removing squirrels' nests just to make sure our cable lines are working well, replacing Ethernet cables all over the place. Just for this moment. On the Bobby's Auto Care hotline, we have Dan Rice from the Hockey Writers. Dan, how are you doing this night?
I'm doing pretty well. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Hey, Dan, it's great to finally talk to you. Dan, I'm going to kind of change the order because of what we're going to talk about. Just because of the technical difficulties, I kind of had to get into the Taylor Hall thing to vamp a little bit. So I'm going to start with Taylor Hall. First, I want to ask you, I don't know if you saw the NHL Network list that had him ranked 15th out of the top 20 wingers. Do you feel like that's fair?
Yeah, I mean, he only played in like 20-something games last year, so that list is. I would assume most of those lists are based on where everybody finished last season. So 15 is pretty good for a guy that didn't play after Christmas.
Okay, I'll give you that. That's fair. Would you say that going into the season, that Taylor Hall is the 15th best wing in the NHL?
I mean, coming off of last year, yeah. I mean, we don't know, how is his knee? Is he going to be MVP Taylor Hall? Is he going to be the guy from the year before that wasn't the MVP? Every season's different, and, you try and string good seasons together, and hopefully he puts together a few really good seasons, and obviously everybody wants to see him stay in New Jersey too. So that would definitely behoove him to have a good season and get this contract stuff taken care of.
Oh, behooves. That's a big word for me, Dan. So, saying all that, would you say that the Devils, I mean, the biggest thing over this team's head this entire season is going to be Taylor Hall's contract until they sign him or do something else? Do you think it would be a good move for the Devils to try to get that done and out of the way? Or do you think because of the injury history, it's better for the Devils to wait on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm of the opinion that I think they should try and get it done before the season because, like you said, it will be a distraction. I personally probably won't ask about it, before or after games or before or after practices, but I'm sure there's going to be other reporters that will ask about that, on a pretty regular basis until it actually happens. So, if you get it done, I feel like they've made enough moves to kind of convince him, hey, look, things are trending in the right direction. We have a solid young nucleus that we're trying to build around, and we really want you to be a part of it. And, I mean, pretty much give him a blank check and see what kind of money he wants and then see if he can find a common ground. I don't think that it should be that hard of a thing to do.
No, I don't think so either. I'm actually kind of surprised that it went this long. Obviously, his end of the season comments were interesting to say the least, but this seemed like a guy that really loved playing in New Jersey. This seemed like a guy who was really buying into everything that John Hines and Ray Shero was doing. So I thought that, like I said, I'm a little surprised it's taking as long as it is, but when you're talking about, upwards of 70, 80, $90 million, these things take time, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And I think had he been healthy for most of the year, I think obviously the season plays out differently, and I think that would change maybe his approach to things. But I also think one of the best things that could have happened in favor of him being a Devil for a long time after this year is them winning the lottery, and that wouldn't have happened if he didn't get hurt and miss a huge chunk of the season. Do you want to stay on a team that has two centers for the next 15 years, or do you want to go elsewhere and constantly trying to chase that cup? We've seen guys over the years, mostly guys from the Rangers, guys of that ilk where they leave somewhere to go to the Rangers to try and chase the cup, and then the team that they left end up winning it, like a Kevin Shattenkirk, for example, was on the Caps, was on the Blues, and both teams won the cup, and now he got bought out and he's in Tampa. So, maybe he's best suited staying in New Jersey and dealing or not dealing, but playing with the talent that he knows, or trying to go somewhere else and trying to start from ground level again.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with just about everything that you just said. I mean, when you think about legacy, when you think about things like that, when it comes to hockey, if Taylor Hall wants to be the kind of player that gets his jersey retired in places and wants to, be known as that big that player, that franchise altering player and things like that, moving around doesn't help that. I mean, obviously a player like Scott Niedermayer had his jersey retired in two places, but I don't think his number's getting retired in Edmonton because he didn't do enough there. And if he left New Jersey after this year, his legacy here is a little bit tainted. It's just going to be one good season. And then, and even if he has a great MVP style season here, I mean, they just, the amount of time that he was here isn't enough to make that kind of an impact. And then he goes to another team and he's starting somewhere else at, 28, 29 years old to try to build his legacy again. So I agree. I think that when it comes to those kinds of things, when it comes to, building with this young nucleus and seeing what the Devils are building, I think that Taylor Hall is just, I think it's better for him to stick around.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think long-term viability for himself and his career is probably the place where he should stay. But, everything has to check out. He has to be sound medically, and they have to give him the money that he wants. And like we referred to earlier, it'll definitely be the talk around the team until it's something that actually gets done or not done one way or another definitively.
And Dan, you said that you were probably not going to ask any of those questions. And Dan, I don't think you're going to have to, because I think you're right. I think somebody's going to ask it every single day. So the day that you have to write the story about it, I think that you'll have all your questions answered.
Yeah, it's just not really my style to push on those kind of things, and I'm not necessarily trying to be the newsbreaker, although it happens occasionally. But that's not really my style or my MO, so to speak.
Oh, Dan, that was a professional transition right there. That right there was a professional radio transition, because now we're going to talk about news breaking and what you've been doing this offseason, Dan. And I want to talk about Gusev. Now, I feel like that you were you the first guy that had it confirmed? I saw a couple rumblings, but then you were the first guy that I saw where I was like, oh, this happened.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who was first or who's, I don't really keep track of those things, but from what people have told me, they saw it from me first. I know none of the other Devils writers had any concrete information on it. My source was pretty damn reputable, and I give a big shout out to that person. They gave me everything, down to the details, and it was just a matter of both teams finally signing off on it. But it was pretty much confirmed when I posted the information, and and away we went. And as luck would have it, I was actually working. I have, for those that don't know, I have a day job where I work at a bakery as well. We had quite a busy day that day, and the few minutes that I had to sit down, take a break, and actually open up my phone, I saw the message that this was going to happen, and put it out there, put my phone down, went back to work for a little while, and I came back and there was about 150 notifications or something like that. So it was pretty very interesting day, and I think obviously Devils fans got what they wanted, and it gives the Devils another weapon in their arsenal and their lineup that they obviously need help scoring a little bit more goals, and this will definitely help. Hopefully.
So no, I think it's definitely going to help. I think he's going to at least have a Dadonov type start. I think he's actually, personally, I think he's going to be a lot better. But tell me how does that work? You said, you're working, you checked your phone, you got the text. Did the text say this happened, or does the text say something like, hey, keep an eye out for Nikita Gusev or something like that, and then you had to make some other points or make some other points of contact?
It was just basically this deal is going to happen. It's just it's minutes away from happening. The league's going to be posting information about it soon, and the teams and so on. This is the specifics of the deal. Yeah, and then I asked if it was all right if I could run with it. I got a little itchy trigger finger because I couldn't wait anymore, and I had to get back to work. So I got another message later on saying, "Well, yeah, you can run with it. I see you already did, but my source is pretty trustworthy, and I didn't have a sliver of a doubt that it was untrue. So, yeah, that's pretty much how it happens. It wasn't like I was digging for anything. It's just somebody that knows that this is the team that I cover, and this is information that might be might be interesting for fans out there. And like I said, and the rest was kind of history. It just kind of spiraled from there. And I think at the end of the day, my phone was pretty tired, and I had to go on the charger for a long time.
So Dan, just kind of, changing course here a little bit. So I was trying to look you up a little bit, kind of see what your background was, kind of see, learn a little bit more. Obviously I've seen you around with the, covering the Devils for years now, but I just wanted to know, like, how did you start? How did you end up on the Devils beat? Things like that. But I have to apologize because I got severely sidetracked because I found a book called Dan Rice, the Most Famous Man You Never Heard Of. So this is apparently a guy from like the 1850s who was a pig presenter, a strongman, a lecturer, and a comic singer. So Dan, I just want you to know, I just want to know how it feels to share a name with the most famous man you never heard of.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. I've heard about that, and somebody's actually showed me in some, I believe it's some city overseas. There's a whole Dan Rice Day and all this, and it's always funny to come across people that have the same name as you or the same name as somebody else, But back to your original point, I got my start. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I first went to college, so I actually dropped out. I got a job at UPS. UPS has this program where they reimburse you if you go to school. Doesn't matter what you're majoring in, or it could have nothing to do with UPS or business management, anything like that. So I decided I wanted to go to school for journalism. They reimbursed me. At the end of my journalism classes, we had internship lists, and that's how I linked up with Stan Fischler, and pretty much worked every day for him for a couple of years. And then I guess it was after the full season lockout, I kind of went out on my own after that, and hooked up with a bunch of little different websites. And because the Devils knew me from going to games with Stan, it was pretty easy for me. I guess I already had my foot in the door, and they knew who I was. They knew I was respectable. I wasn't going there to like just hang out and goof off or anything like that. And, worked for a couple of places, and then probably right when the playoffs started in 2012, I got hooked up with the Hockey Writers and just kind of like switched my affiliation over to them, and everything was status quo, as pretty much everybody knows. That's a Lamarillo saying, but it was pretty much status quo between me and the team as far as the PR department goes. And they have I think one of the most underrated group of PR people throughout the league. The Devils PR people do a great job. They give us pretty much everything that we need as far as access to players and the time with them that we need to do to do great interviews and put out good articles and stuff like that. Yeah, pretty much it's been the same since I joined the Hockey Writers. It's been a pretty fun ride. I've seen a lot of memorable games, and for good and bad reasons. And I'm really looking forward to this season with Jack Hughes coming on board. It was crazy to me that when they got the number one pick the first time, and I made sure that I was lucky enough, I guess, that I got to cover that draft. Because I figured it was a once-in-a-lifetime kind of deal, and then they got it again 2 years later. But Vancouver was a little too far for me, so I didn't make that trip. But I think it's going to be a really, really interesting season this year. Not only Hughes coming aboard and Gusev, who we already talked about, but PK Subban and all the attention he brings and the excitement and those kind of things. So it should be a fun and interesting season this year.
So Dan, you brought up PK Subban. You've been covering this team for over a decade. Have you ever seen anything like that press conference that they held?
No, that was really. I want to say it was maybe a little bit over the top, but I get it. And in this era of social media and those kind of things, with instant videos and people can watch things, at the click of a button. You kind of want to have that because you want. And people have been talking about the Devils all summer. I mean, they haven't made it. Other than the Gusev move, they haven't really done much since the draft, and I guess signing Hughes to his contract, which everybody knew was going to happen. But they've been in the news quite frequently this summer, and that's not always necessarily a good thing. But I think in this case, it is a good thing because it's brought some attention to them, and it just again it sets up just a really interesting season. They've never had a player of his. I don't want to say of his caliber, but like his personality and his maybe star status. Even when they had guys like Brodeur and Stevens and Niedermeyer, because that was the Lamoriello era, everything was kind of kept under wraps. And the most famous thing, pop culture wise, I guess, that happened in that era was the whole Seinfeld episode with the Putty wearing the Devils jersey. Like that's really it. There was no other Devils stuff that was I guess that was kind of viral back then. But yeah, I think you guys know what I'm trying to get at, right?
Yeah. No, I definitely understand. I mean, I think just in general, I mean, even if you look at last year, so last year, I don't know if you follow the WWE at all, Dan, but it was a big deal that the Devils were able to get Becky Lynch on their WWE night and things like that. Like that's just something I don't see the Lou Lamoriello embracing, or having Putty come out for 90s night and doing these great graphics. I mean, you talked about the Devils PR department. I mean, every department of the Devils I feel like has been hitting on all cylinders the past 10, 11, 12 months.
Yeah, and that's a tribute to the owners and Ray Shero and the team that he's put together underneath him from all departments, whether it's bringing in analytics people or having the I'm not even sure what they call, but the production team, I guess. They won like a huge award for their 90s night montage video. Those things are good. It keeps your brand growing, and it keeps your brand on the tip of everybody's tongues and in the front of everybody's heads. And it's certainly a new era. Some of the older fans maybe aren't used to that kind of stuff, but you have to adapt and change with the times. And I think they've done a great job with that.
So looking ahead, you look at this lineup, and Dan, I don't know if you agree with me, but I think there's one spot that's open on this entire lineup. When you got 8 defensemen signed to one-way contracts. You got a lot of other, even the forwards signed to one-ways because, Kevin Rooney's on the one-way. You got Hayden there. And then, but when you look at the lineup itself, it looks like there's just one spot on that fourth line right wing, unless you do, unless you move Zaka to wing, yada, yada, yada. But point is that I want to know what you think going into camp. Who are going to be those players that are going to be fighting for that last spot? Do you see any surprises? Maybe a McLeod or maybe a Studenich? Or do you think it's going to be, Jesper Boquist versus everybody?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, as the way I look at it, they have the top 9 forwards are set. They're going to be on the team. To me, that's however you want to line them up. Hall, Nico, Palmieri, Gusev, Hughes, Simmons, Bratt, Coleman, and Zajac. We'll say those 9 forwards are on the roster. There's no way they're not on the team, right? So then you're looking at for the fourth line and for your spare forwards, you have a group of guys like Hayden, Miles Wood, Zaka, Rooney, Boquist, and we'll even throw Joey Anderson in there. So that's 6 guys for, like you said, they're battling for one guy's going to get left out. Basically, it's like a game of musical chairs. There's going to be one chair that's going to get pulled out, and somebody's not going to have a spot. And that's if they decide not to carry 8 defensemen instead of 7, which I think they'll carry 7. I don't foresee them carrying 8, but stranger things have happened. So I think those guys like Bastion and McLeod and Studenich and even a guy like Bretzini that played a lot last year, I think those are going to be your, guys that start in the AHL. And if there's an injury early on or at any point, they're going to be one of the first guys called up. But that last spot, I mean, Boquist, if he has a great camp, then he's probably going to stay on the team. But are you going to keep him on the team just to play fourth line minutes? Do you drop, somebody else down to the fourth line and give him more minutes if he's playing that well? And again, injuries always change everything. So, we can get into the first week of training camp, somebody could get hurt, and then that alters the plan for the whole rest of the season. So it'll be an interesting battle. I don't think they still haven't signed Zaki yet. I still feel like at some point there might be another trade be it for a draft pick or, lesser asset, somebody to play in the minor leagues. But we'll see. And that should be another thing along with the will he or won't he sign with Taylor Hall. That'll be a storyline, I think, this training camp.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on many parts. The one thing that you just said that kind of blew my mind a little bit is that you think they're only going to carry 7 defensemen. So do you think that spells bad news for Ty Smith, or do you think they're going to move one of the people that's already on the roster?
No, I think, and this is just, I don't have any basis on this, just the way that I have a feeling it's going to play out is I don't see any way that Smith isn't on the team. And if they don't trade any of the defensemen, I could see them keeping Carrick and trying to sneak Mueller down through waivers to Binghamton, or vice versa. I'd see them try and keep Mueller and send Carrick down to the minors. I think you're looking at Ty Smith with Green and Severson and Vatanen and Butcher and PK, and that's your 6D right there. And it's going to be between Carrick and Mueller who has a better camp and who's in better shape and who the coaching staff thinks fits better what they want to do going into this season.
Well, Dan, I mean, you answered every single one of my questions exactly how I thought you were going to. I mean, you've been a wonderful guest with us tonight. I really appreciate all your insight. It's, you've even, you got me thinking about a couple things tonight where I'm kind of like, oh man, I had a one-track mind on a couple things with this lineup, and you're kind of giving me, you're forcing me to open my eyes a little bit. So I always appreciate that. I'm sure you've done that for our fans, and I really appreciate you coming on, and we can't wait to have you, maybe a little bit, sometime during the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you guys reaching out to me, and anytime you want to have me on, just shoot me a message, and we'll figure out something that works for everybody.
Dan, you've been great. I really appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Well, that is Dan Rice of the Hockey Writers. Yeah, he's been there for a while, hasn't he, Nick? With the Hockey Writers since 2012 or something like that.
Oh, he's been at Hockey Writers for 6 years, but he's been covering the Devils for 12.
Wow, that's a long time. I mean, I've seen Dan in the press box at times. I just, usually when you're working up there, you're zoned in and focused. But next time I see him, I'll introduce myself because I've heard many good things about him through some other colleagues and this and that. But I've never talked to the guy or never really met him. So, but that's good.
I mean, you heard good things from him tonight. He was great.
Yeah, absolutely. So I should probably get our next guest, right? Real quick.
Yeah, I mean, we're running low on time just because of our, because of issues beyond our control. But so we're going to hit you with content after content. We're not going to let you rest. We're going to hit you again. Let's hit him again, Sam. Okay. Yeah. So I will, I'll let you speak for the next 5 minutes. You gotta look at what Facebook Live is. It's out of control. Twitter.
YouTube Live. There's a lot of chatter. There's a lot of chatter going on.
There's a lot of talking, and you Devils fans, you were quiet to start tonight. And I was going to say something, but I mean, you taught me a lesson, because as soon as I thought that you were saying a little too little, now you're saying so much I can't even keep up. It's been crazy. You know, I just going through some of these comments. You know, a lot of people had a lot to say about that. You know, Dan's last comment, the thing that I was talking about, where he thinks we're only going to carry 7 defensemen. Thinking that. He said Ty Smith, he thinks is a lock to make this roster. And you look, a lot of people, they think that Mirko Mueller might be the odd man out. And I would say you need to temper those expectations, because this is a guy that Ray Shero liked so much that he traded really good picks for him. I think it ended up being the same equivalent of what he sent for Marcus Johansson. I believe I'd have to double check that, but that's a lot of expectation for a guy. And I don't think he's ready to just give up on him and just send him through waivers. I think somebody would trade something for him. We were able to trade Dalton Prout, and I will let me mention this while we have time. If you haven't seen it, this happened about an hour or two before the podcast. Eddie Lack, the guy we traded Dalton Prout for, it looks like he's not going to be ready for the season, to the point that he's had to take a coaching job with the Arizona State Sun Devils. And now you might be thinking it's crazy that Arizona State has a hockey team. Fun story, when I was covering West Virginia hockey years ago, Arizona State was the number 1 club team in the entire country. It was crazy. But neither here nor there. The fact that that Lack at 31 years old might have to take a whole nother season off. That's going to be unfortunate for him. I think that was a guy that I've seen a couple of the writers point out that the Devils could still sign to come back and play a veteran role in Binghamton. But that looks like it's out of the question now. He's going to spend the year coaching with Arizona State. So we just wish him the best. I mean, Eddie Lack's a great guy. Eddie Lack's a player that, I think has done a lot in this game in this short amount of time. He had that really great run with Vancouver, and then he got traded to Carolina, and it looks like that those injuries started all the way back then. That was about 4 or 5 years ago. So, we wish the best for Eddie Lack. We really do. So I just wanted to point that out there. I didn't want to go on, obviously he was a Devil last year. We might have forgotten he was a Devil just because he was injured most of the season, but Sam, just to catch you up, I was talking about, it looks like Eddie Lack, has to step away from the game for this year because those injuries really, really, really hurt his hip.
Yeah, I heard that. I think he's set to the coaching position. I think University of Arizona, if I'm not mistaken. Arizona State. That's it.
So
yeah,
we wish him the best. He's a good guy. Maybe he's a guy we should try to get on the podcast. He's a funny guy.
Okay. We're going to do that.
I'll work on that tomorrow.
Okay.
Oh, you're going to do it? One of us will get him.
No, how about you do it? Well, then again, you got something going on in Montreal tomorrow, but we won't talk about that yet.
All right. So you ready for this game, Sam?
I'm ready for this game. Let's get on our next guest on the Bobby's Auto Care Hotline. How do you pronounce his last name? Is it
I was going to ask him.
I've
only seen
why
it
don't we ask Charlie? Why don't we ask Charlie? Charlie, you're on the air right now. I don't want to mutilate it, but is it? Let me guess. Borges? Is it Borges?
Yeah, Borges. Yep.
Okay.
So he's Charlie Gorgeous Borges.
Yep, I've had that nickname all my life. It's been butchered many a time. It's been Borges, Bourget, Bourgeois.
Oh,
it's been
fancy French.
I still don't know if I'm French or not. I still have to do the whole ancestry.com thing just to see where I'm from. I asked my parents 12 different times. I've gotten 12 different answers where I'm from.
By the way, Charlie, but before we start this bit, Charlie, I have to point this out because there's a last second cancellation and this and that, and we were trying to, I asked for a photo and graphic, and what you sent me, I'm like, does this have to do with forks and pitchforks, or that was the only picture you got of you with a fork? And what is that there? Some pork or chicken?
It's
or,
some beef, Sam. That's beef.
So
is that beef?
that this is going to sound absolutely gross, but that picture was taken when I was in Ecuador. That's actually a guinea pig.
Oh,
What?
It's a delicacy in Ecuador, and I wanted to try it. And my mom was like, "If you try it, take a picture, send it to me." And that was the picture I had, and I thought it would be a sly play on words for pucks and pitchforks. I was holding a fork, so there you go.
Charlie, I'm disgusted.
Hey, where's the meat?
Alrighty then. Well, moving on. So, Nick, why don't you take over this bit before it gets off out of control?
Oh, we're off the rails. This train is still gonna move off the rails though. We're gonna get to our destination, Sam. We're gonna play a game. Now, last week I think the game went pretty well. We played Who's on the Island or whatever you call that game. And this week we're gonna go with another completely original, my idea. Nobody's ever used this before. Of Would You Rather. Now, if in case you didn't listen or hear or watch last week's podcast, the way it's going to work is I'm going to put Sam up against Charlie, and we're going to play the game, and they're going to see who does better at the game, and I am the judge, jury, and executioner for this game. So now I have to ask Sam, Charlie, are you ready to play the game?
I'm ready to go.
I'm ready, but I want Charlie to go first because I have a home podcast advantage.
Fair enough.
I'll
So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you two scenarios, and you have to give me which one you'd rather do. All right? It's simple. You guys understand the rules?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Charlie, we'll start with you. Would you rather lose Taylor Hall in free agency next year or pay him $13.5 million per season?
I'd rather
And that's
see
a
him
max
walk.
contract, 8 years.
I'd rather see him walk. You want me to
Oof.
elaborate?
Yes.
So I'd rather see him walk because I know the Devils cap situation after this season, you're still in pretty good shape. You have Andy Green coming off the books this year. I believe Sajak as well. If not Sajak next year, the year after that. So they're still sitting pretty. But $13.5 million for 1 year of an MVP is a little too much for me. I wouldn't go past 11.5. I wouldn't go past 11.5. There's no reason why Taylor Hall, after 1 year, should be making Connor McDavid money at all. Nobody should be making as much as Connor McDavid. So when people say Mitch Marner is going to be offered $13 million by the Islanders, I think it's crazy. But I'd rather see him walk and have 1 good year left with the Devils, maybe get to the playoffs and set that good foundation. Yeah, he may leave, but Jack Hughes has his rookie year gone. And next year he'll have 1 year of experience under his belt. He'll know what he's going to do, and he can probably take that load that Taylor Hall had and step into it even more. And who knows, maybe Nikita Gusev can be what Taylor Hall was. But if he's going to get $13 million, let him walk.
All right, Sam, what do you think?
I'm completely opposite of Charlie Borges Jr. I wouldn't pay him $13 million. I'd pay him $16 million a year. Do you know why?
Why, Sam?
This is the reason why, because I'm going to go into my little conspiracy theory, and I'm going to tell you why. Because A, you retain him. You drive up the market for a 15th overall winger in the NHL, ranked by NHL Network. But the CBA is looming. And guess what happens with that? Every time there's a new CBA agreement, you've got a couple freebie buyouts and you can buy them out later. But as long as you can keep them now, he could be tradable. He may not be tradable, but who cares? Eventually, you'll just buy him out if he sucks. What do you think of that?
I think I'm happy that both of you aren't the GM of the New Jersey Devils. So I think we've established that. All right. So on to the next Would You Rather. And this one I think is going to be a thinker. All right. Would you rather the Rangers win the Stanley Cup next year or the Devils don't win the Stanley Cup for the next 10 years?
You want to take this
Charlie,
one?
you're going first.
I'm going first. Growing up in New Jersey and my dad pretty much putting a Devils jersey in my hand as soon as I was born, and having that hatred for the New York Rangers, I would rather have the Devils never win a Stanley Cup again, if that means the Rangers also never win the Stanley Cup again. Because I'm a Mets fan. I am so used to mediocrity and never winning. So, and a Buccaneer fan as well. We had one good year in 2002. I'm more than okay with never having a Stanley Cup again, if that means the New York Rangers, the New York Yankees, the Dallas Cowboys, any of them can never win again as well.
Oh, man, misery loves company over there at Charlieville. Well, Sam, what do you think?
Well, I kind of agree with Charlie. It's kind of like bringing them down like the Titanic. You know, we'll sacrifice ourselves. We'll sacrifice ourselves so our hated rival will never win again. I will say this before I give you my answer, is that one of the things about getting older is more years between you and 94 and more years between you and 1975, if you get my drift. When I get older now, it's like, well, it's one more year since the Rangers won the Stanley Cup. There's a generation out there that finally can legally drink, have never seen the Rangers win the Stanley Cup. I mean, to answer your question, if I remember your question, because I went off a little tangent here, I'll be selfish about it. I've seen the Devils win the Cup 3 times. If they don't win it again, but it also means that 94 is forevermore, and and that's it. And the Rangers have only won 4 cups in their history, and 3 of them happened when there was only 6 teams in the league. They would have suffered more than the New Jersey Devils, because the Devils at least won it in 2003, at least in this millennium. So that's my answer. I would agree with Charlie.
All right. Fair points. Fair points by all. So moving on. So would you rather, Charlie, Nolan Patrick wins the NHL MVP or Capo Caco wins NHL MVP?
Ooh. You got to give me a second to think about one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm throwing out spicy meatballs for you. Not guinea pig. These are beef meatballs, Charlie.
But one final comment on the last question. I would wait 20 years if the Islanders won one. So if the Islanders won next year, but the Devils won in 20, I'd be okay with that. Now, the answer to this question, I would rather have Nolan Patrick win an MVP over Capo Caco. Because, A, it's a whole Rangers aspect to it, but also Jack Hughes has been talked about ever since he was, 13, 14 years old, as him being the next big thing. Not Brock Lesnar, the next big thing, but the future of the league. And Nico Hischier pretty much came out of absolute nowhere. So I'd rather have somebody like Capo Caco, who's arguably of equal talent, win the MVP over Jack Hughes. So I'd rather have Nolan Patrick win NHL MVP over Nico Hischier, because Patrick was also talked about highly over Nico Hischier, but Hischier came out of nowhere. Plus, it's the Flyers, so it's okay. I mean, it's not okay, but it'd be a easier pill to swallow than a Ranger being picked number 2 behind a Devil, surpassing the Devil, if you know what I'm trying to say.
All right, Sam, what do you think?
That's the toughest question of the night, Nick. I don't really know.
So
I almost want to say C, none of the above.
That's not an option. That's why this game is fun, Sam. We're having fun.
I mean, but Nolan Patrick wasn't his uncle James Patrick, played for the Rangers, back in the day. So there's that little Rangers
What's your point,
connection
Sam?
there. I don't know what's my point, but I would agree with Charlie. Prefer Nolan Patrick. I mean, Jack Hughes is like a generational player, and if the guy pick after him, wins the MVP, I mean, we'll never hear the end of it. Nolan Patrick, it's kind of like, I don't know. It's just it's not as elite draft class as this year's. So I would say Nolan Patrick.
Fair enough. Next question, Charlie. This one goes back to you. We're gonna do this like baseball. You're just you're the away team. I'm sorry. Would you rather that Mackenzie Blackwood shows his 2019 self, or Corey Schneider shows his 2015 self?
So are we talking about pre-injury Corey Schneider?
Yeah, so that would be, I think 2015 was the year before he started to fall off the map a little bit. I think, let me look up his exact stats. But I'm talking about the Corey Schneider before, the 2 years after that Brodeur retired, or Mackenzie Blackwood last year. Which one would you rather see this coming season?
This coming season, I would rather have 2015 Corey Schneider, because you have a team right now who's young enough to still be impressionable while still having that nice mix of veterans with Wayne Simmons coming in, PK Subban coming in. You have guys like those two already with playoff experience. If you look at the rest of the team, the only guys who have been mainstays of the roster, and I say mainstays very lightly because I have a poster on my wall from the 2014 roster of the Devils, and 3 guys are left. So Travis Zajac and Andy Green and Corey Schneider, they're the only Devils that have playoff experience besides the guys that are coming in right now. And if you're trying to win now to get Taylor Hall to stay, I'd rather have Corey Schneider, who's been to a Stanley Cup final before with Vancouver in 2011. Even though they lost to the Bruins, he's been there. He's gone far enough. So I'd rather have somebody like Schneider, who I know can be dependable, or let me rephrase, 2015 Corey Schneider, who can be dependable, than a 2019 Mackenzie Blackwood, who hasn't even finished his cup of coffee yet.
All right, Sam, what do you think?
I disagree with Charlie. I disagree with him completely. Corey Schneider is old news. Mackenzie Blackwood is the future, and the future is now. So that's my pick.
Were you about to say new news, Sam, and then you had to pivot?
How'd you know? Yeah, I almost did.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're running out of time, so we're going to get right to the next one. And this is our final one. So this is for all the marbles. Right now I have you guys 2-2 going into the 5th set. Would you, Charlie Borges Jr., Gorgeous Borges, rather have Jack Hughes play his entire career with the Devils or Nico Hischier play his entire career with the Devils? It's the devil you know versus the devil you don't.
I was about to say, let's just say Jack Hughes has 70 points his rookie year. I'd rather have Jack Hughes, but right now, you got using some pretty good ones tonight, Nick.
That's what I'm here for.
I'm gonna go with. I have to go Jack Hughes. I'd rather have Jack Hughes play the rest of his career with the Devils because he's been hyped up so much, and if he can add even a tenth of the talent that this kid is supposed to have, not saying that Nico Hischier is not talented. He obviously is. He was an number one overall pick. He's played in the NHL. I'd rather have Jack Hughes, who's somebody that has been projected to have 60 to 70 points in his first couple of years, and then, the sky's the limit from him. From Hischier, I'm not really seeing the 70, 80, 90 point potential that Hughes is supposed to have. Hischier, I would be okay with Hischier being a 60, 65 point guy, being one of those Patrice Bergeron type defensive centers, but Jack Hughes, if he can be both and get 90 points, Jack Hughes the rest of his career all day.
Sam?
It's really a no-brainer. It's Jack Hughes. I mean, think about it. He's an American. And who are you going to root for if the NHL is back in the Olympics or any kind of world?
Right here, Sam. This right here is what I'm rooting for.
You know what? My allegiance to the United States, Nico who? I want to see him get his ass kicked by the Americans. I don't care. I want to see his goalie get scored on 10 times. Like Swiss cheese.
What if that goalie's a cure?
Get it? I'm trying my best to win this one. We're tied right now, Charlie, because you took my answer. I was hoping you'd say Nico. You pump faked me. I thought you were going to go to Nico. But Jack Hughes.
That's what I want to do.
But I tell you what, Jack Hughes changed the entire mindset of this organization by being drafted. And what happened? He's like a god. And what happened the next day? They got PK Subban. And the Goose flew from Vegas to New Jersey. Anything Jack Hughes touches turns to gold. So that's my pick. I'd rather have Jack Hughes lifetime with the New Jersey Devils, even if it costs the Devils $29 million a year of cap space.
All right, so now it's time for me to pick a winner. You both brought it tonight. But all right, so I have to go with Sam tonight. Sam is our winner because
it's rigged, I tell you.
I have to go with Sam because I think having, you went with the short-term solution in Corey Schneider showing his 2015 self. Having a 30-plus-year-old goalie have another great season would be great. But if we have a Mackenzie Blackwood coming in and showing his 2019 stuff, showing some consistency, showing that he was better than Carter Hart, I think that would be big for us. So, Charlie, I'm sorry. Charlie, your consolation prize is that you get to probably get like 10 new followers on Twitter for this amazing game that we've come up with.
I'm okay with that. Sam, well done, well played.
Charlie, I have to say, I'm going to give you a tip. Do you know what I eat before every podcast is beef?
Oh my God.
Not guinea pig. It gives you an edge.
That guinea pig was eaten 2 years ago.
Yeah, but Charlie, I don't think we're gonna let you live that one down.
It's fine.
Is that guinea pig Taylor ham or pork roll, Charlie?
Yeah, it's pork roll.
Oh,
All right, Charlie.
All right, there you go. There you go.
I just kicked off Charlie. We're not going to even close him out. I just kicked off Charlie.
Yeah, pork roll. Woo, 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 woo. All right, Sam. we talked through technical difficulties. We had a great interview with Dan Rice. But Sam, I think I have an even better game for you next week. I'm going to need you to do some preparation for this one. Can you do that for me?
Don't I prepare for every podcast?
Well, no. I asked you not to prepare for this game. I didn't ask you to take any time of your day. But so next week we got an exciting podcast because our game is going to be 6 degrees of separation. I'm going to give you 2 players that once played for the Devils, and you have to connect them through teammates. Have you ever played 6 degrees with Kevin Bacon?
No. We're going to have to review this off air, but no.
Okay.
I will prepare.
And then we have Chris Ryan of NJ.com scheduled to be with us. I say scheduled because we have to confirm these things, but we have him on the calendar and we've spoken about this. So as long as he doesn't have something crazy coming up, I think that we're set, Sam.
Are you saying we have a celebrity coming on? Chris Ryan of NJ.com?
The newly married, the one and the only. Well, actually, there's probably a lot of Chris Ryans out there, but he's our only Chris Ryan.
Is there a Chris Ryan from 1850 like there is Dan Rice? I remember. I was Googling his name before and tried to get a graphic, and you know what happened was that's what the first thing that showed up, and I'm like, and then I texted you immediately. I need a graphic. I need his photo. But I did find one.
If you would have used the Dan Rice headshot from the guy from the 1850s that I'm looking at right now, I would have retired because this would be the high point of my career.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
Sam, it was a good podcast.
Yeah, it was a good podcast. We'll be back next Wednesday, with August 21st, I think, with Chris Ryan of NJ.com. Yeah, well, you can check out our podcast. We'll drop it in by midnight. Let'sGoDevils.com, iTunes, Spotify, iHeart app. You can find us everywhere. We're almost at near 20,000 lifetime downloads, Nick. I'm getting excited. We're increasing in popularity.
Let's go. Let's go Devils.
Also, if you could vote for the Red Mill, the link that's pinned to the Facebook Live podcast, vote for the Red Mill because that's where the Let's Go Devils podcast was first thought of, and it made history, and that's why we have this podcast right now. But anyway,
let's go.
We'll see you next week, Nick. Have a safe trip where you're going for the next 4 days. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy the Canadian ballet. Until next time, let's go Devils.